Craig Cameron, Gloves Red, delighted to be joined by Hannah Rankin. Hannah, how are you getting on okay?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I must apologise for the hat because I went to training and I got in and then I was watching some of the Sky Sports show and then I realised my hair was a disaster. I was like, I can't do this. I have to put a hat on. So yeah, it was straight on. Sorry.
Well, listen, you're lucky you've got hair, Hannah. You're lucky you've got hair. So I've started trying to wear more hats myself, especially in the winter when it gets a bit colder up here, as you know.
Oh yeah.
Well. But I was saying to you off camera and to everyone there, I don't think I've had there's been a better background set for an interview I've ever done with a fighter before. So it's very, very cool, Hannah. So I'm looking here, so I've got the IBO world title.
Yeah,
what's
WBC
WBC as well? I was hiding.
Yeah.
Macy's.
The little one above was a miniature one from the IBO. It was a special recognition for becoming Scotland's first ever female world champion, and they awarded me that when I was over in Detroit, in Florida, sorry, with Carissa. So yeah, it was a really special gift to be given.
That's cool. And what about the wee sketch of yourself? Who's that?
There was a little animation, like a little drawing that was done for me for someone. I helped them do a video. They were filming some footage about music and performing and things, but also the boxing side of it. So they did a little drawing for me. So I've kept it.
Great. No, listen, a good way to start the interview. So again, I touched on there, I think you've been in demand recently in regards to interviews with, the biggest fight of your career, would you say, coming up? Would you class it as
Absolutely.
that? Yeah. So biggest fight of your career coming up. So lots of people want to speak to you, but the Life in Boxing series I've been doing is just trying to, I suppose, go into a bit more depth and maybe trying to uncover a bit of gold that you've maybe not mentioned to someone before, or that's the idea. That's the idea, but a very kind of informal, relaxed chat, if we can, Hannah, if you don't mind. So I'm going to go back to you living in Luss. And would I be right in saying, were you the only person in your class?
Yeah, so we have the farm at the top of Glen Luss, and the village is the closest is Luss for us. And I was the only one in my class for 4 years, primary 1 to primary 4. And then a boy came to join. His name was Callum Gilbert, actually, and he joined in halfway through primary 4. And then there was 2 of us in my year.
Yeah. So, like, what was that like? Because see, every time I meet you, Hannah, like I've not met anyone that's got a bad word to say about you, but I'd say you're like extremely outgoing and extremely friendly. So surely when you're that age and you're like primary 1 to primary 4, like communicating with people in class is a way of like getting confidence. So like, who were you, like, I suppose, playing with, like, growing up, like the fact that you're the only person in your own class?
Well, to be honest, so there's 27 kids in total in the whole school. So that was primary 1 to primary 6.
Yeah.
And there were 2 classrooms. So primary 1, 2, and 3 were in the small classroom, and the big classroom was 4, 5, 6, 7. So like, I think obviously being the only one starting on my own, I was always interacting with older people straight off the bat. And I'm the eldest of 3 sisters. So I had 2 younger sisters who then quite soon after that joined me at the school in different years. But, interaction wise, yeah, it was limited because there was only 27 of us. But it's that sort of small village life thing where everybody knows everybody else. We had the farm at the top of the hill, so like people used to walk up the glen and down and things like that. So yeah, I was interacting with older people straight off the bat, which I think gave me quite a lot of confidence anyway. And actually, my mom's parents were both teachers. So I had that sort of like positive educational influence from quite a young age. They were always getting me to do, I always had stuff to do over the summer holidays, like homework and like extra maths and reading and stuff. But they were really good and introduced me to lots of things as well.
Great. So in terms of your first exposure to fighting or boxing, like where did that stem from? When did that begin?
So when I was young, when I was probably, let me think, I would have been 9 years old. I went to Taekwondo, I was sent to taekwondo by my mum. She was like, I think you'll enjoy this. And she sent my sister too. And I think it was my middle sister, Emma. And I think it was probably to stop us fighting each other. Because being 3 farming daughters, we fought like cat and dog. So she was like, we'll send you to taekwondo, you'll learn how to properly do it and not do it on each other. So that was it at probably about 8-9 age. And I really loved taekwondo. Carried that on right through till probably the end of first year of a secondary school. But I got quite far up, got my blue belt red tag, and I was working hard. And I've always loved combat sports. Like I've always loved to go to watch, the kung fu films and stuff like that. That's just always fascinated me. And I think, it was a nice introduction into it, and a good outlet for my energy as a child, because I was a very energetic kid. So doing a combat sport meant that I could throw literally my whole self into it. So yeah.
And would I be right in saying, Hannah, so when you moved to London, that was specifically a music decision and a music decision only? And was that when you met Noel and you started to kind of box a bit?
Yeah, so I'd always, probably from about the age of 10, I wanted to live in London. Unlike the rest of my family, unlike my sisters who've both gone into farming, like I love the city. I've always loved the city. And at 10 years old, I was like, I want to live here. That's where I want to go. And when I applied for my undergraduates, I actually got into one of the music schools in London for my undergraduate, but I decided to stay in Glasgow with my teacher there, Janet Bloxwich at the time, because she was fantastic. And it was a great decision. But then I promised myself I'd move to London for my master's. And I got into the Royal Academy of Music, and I did just that. Then when I moved down here, started my just before I moved down, I've been getting fit again, doing Thai boxing at the Grip House and circuit training with them. So when I moved down, I found a gym that did boxing and Thai gym box. It was the first one that came up, so I signed up, and that's where I met Noel, and he introduced me to boxing, and Derek Williams as well, Sweet D Williams. Both of them introduced me to boxing, and I absolutely fell in love with it.
Yeah, great. And Hannah, just to go back slightly, because you always said like I want to live in London, and you promised yourself you'd do the masters in London. Like, what age did you first visit London, and what was your impression of the place in your first visit?
I was 10 years old for my very first visit. My aunt, my mum's younger sister, my Auntie Louise, she lived in London with her husband at the time, and we went with my grandparents in a summer holiday to visit them. And my grandparents did the traditional things. They took us to Buckingham Palace, we went to St James's Park, went to the Children's Museum, saw all of the soldiers, all that sort of stuff, Yeah. But I absolutely fell in love with London then. I was obsessed with the tube. I thought it was it's a really funny image, and I think my grandparents still think about it today. It's like the very first time me and my sisters saw a tube come out the tunnel, we're all standing in a row on the platform edge, and the tube comes out, and all 3 of us jump back because we've never seen it, because we'd never used the train at home. We never did any of that stuff because Mum just drove us because we were in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So the first time the tube came out of the tunnel, all 3 of us jumped back. I'm really surprised. But I've always loved it. I love the hustle and bustle, and I love the noise and the constant action and events that are going on. So I always wanted to live here from that age.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just what a contrast from the farm at the top of the hill to someone that's like, oh, I've always wanted to live in London, and then enjoying the hustle and bustle in the underground and the stories you're talking about there, So and meeting Noel and getting into boxing, how did that relationship start with Noel in terms of from a training perspective? Was it just kind of classes you're doing, and then it turned into kind of more serious with some objectives and some goals behind that?
Yeah, so I was just doing it for fitness really at the gym. I started doing the Thai classes, and then I met Noel, and he said, come to the boxing classes, you'll probably enjoy them, you got good hands. And I was like, all right, I'll come along. A bit tentative because I was like, I enjoy kicking people, so I kind of maybe want to stay in Thai. But came along, and I actually really got into it. And my first term of the Royal Academy of Music, I spent just going there for fitness, do classes, enjoying it. When I got home for Christmas that year, that was the year my mum got diagnosed with cancer, and she was really sick. And it turned out to be one of the most important parts of my life. Actually, my boxing was something that I could escape to when I wasn't at uni. because for uni for me was something that associated with my mum. She was really sick and she wouldn't let me come home. She said, you've got to study because they're really proud that you're there. And so my mum and I always did music together. So to get away from that, boxing was like my escape. And I had a real family at the gym, and obviously Noel and Derek and everyone, they were all part of that. And when my mum passed away, unfortunately, really quickly. So 6 months later, she passed away. And boxing was there for me at a really important time, like when I was going through a grieving process. And it's probably why I feel I owe so much to the sport now, because that's what introduced me into it. And it was there for me to help me out, and it was just the perfect thing at the right time. And I think a lot of people who get into boxing have different reasons for getting involved in a combat sport in general. But yeah, that boxing was there for me at a very difficult time. And that's actually how I got to know Noel. And we ended up doing white collar fights because I wanted to raise money for charity, for the cancer charities, to obviously after my mom passed away. So that's how we kind of all got to really know each other and work well together.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're quite rightly saying that, and having that outlet, I suppose, at a really difficult time in your life.
Yeah.
Hannah, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask you anyway. Like, you seem like someone that's just so set on goals and objectives and hitting them. Is that because of your mum? Is that you, like, I'm going to do this because of my mum, both in boxing and music?
I think that's probably been instilled in me from a really young age. My mum encouraged us to do whatever we wanted to do. Like we were never told we couldn't do something. If we wanted to try something, you're more than welcome to go and do it. And my mum was like a personal taxi driver for us three girls when we were kids. Like we all had music lessons. We all had extra like sports that we did. And she just took us to all of them, but we weren't allowed to just do something and then give it up. You had to give it a good go. And even if you hated it after the first couple of sessions, you've got it there for about 6 months. You got to work at it and see if you're actually going to like it. And I think from a young age, because being on the farm as well, you have to work hard. Like, animals need to be looked after. If you want something, then you've got to look after it and you've got to put the time and effort into it. And so, no, I think boxing wise, it just comes as part of my nature and it's something that my parents have instilled in me. But whenever I go out in the ring on fight night, and my mum was always with me. Like she's always there. I know she'd be going mental. And I do it for her. She's my inspiration, and she's someone that when people say, oh, what's your why? My mum's my why, because she was an absolute superhero. So for me, getting in the ring on fight night to put on a great performance for everybody, it's because of my mum. I want to showcase that she brought me up well and produced somebody that could make an exciting night for people.
Yeah, no, great mindset as well, Hannah. And I was actually listening to the High Performance podcast with Michael Bisping, and they were talking about how when he first went to MMA, he got his ass kicked again and again and again. And they said, well, why did you go back? Most people would, get their ass whipped and then they wouldn't go back. And he's like, didn't even come into my head. It just felt as if I had to keep going, had to get better, had to improve, had to learn. And it sounds to me as if you've got a kind of similar mindset, and your mum's instilled that in you with not just boxing, but music and anything in life.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that Noel saw in me really early on. So when I wanted to go past the level of white collar, he was like, we'll go and get some sparring with some pros and see how you go, because I wouldn't go to an amateur club. I wouldn't leave my team. And he was like, but I'm not with an amateur club. You should go do that. And I was like, no, I want to go pro. We'll do the other one so I can stay with my team because that's important to me. But yeah, I went for my first pro sparring session with Kelly Morgan. Do you remember Kelly Morgan? She used to former WBC silver middleweight before she retired. And she had an amazing right hand. She also competed in the Commonwealth Games, I think it was, for javelin. So her right hand was like Thor's hammer coming in, and the first spar definitely was super hard for me. It was one of the hardest, however many rounds, 6 rounds of my life. But I got out, and even though I had a few bumps and bruises in the car on the way back, I was like, so when are we going back? Because I want to go in there and I want to do better. Because whenever I go to do something, you always want it to be the best. And I saw some things that she did that I wanted to be able to do as well. And it's like that sort of competition with myself. I've always been very competitive with myself to achieve things. So I was like, yeah, I want to go back. And he always says that's the reason that he wanted to train me and push me, because I've got that mindset. It's a very similar mindset to him as well. So it's why we've pushed so hard to get to where we are now.
Yeah, something that was very apparent with yourself, Hannah, when I kind of first met you, and kind of looking into your career, and following you on social media, was I find that some fighters might be, they don't want to travel for sparring, which I think is extremely key to anyone that's wanting to improve in boxing. And that's something that you've done from the get-go. Like, is there any one experience, Hannah, that you can remember getting into and sparring with someone and just been like, wow, this is like a completely new level that I need to get to, but like I'm glad I've done it? Is there any kind of memories like that?
Yeah, so like you said, I've traveled a lot for sparring. I've been all around the world actually for it, and I've sparred with some amazing people. But probably early on in my career, when I went to spar, I sparred Michaela Lauren for the first time, and I've never felt kind of like so nervous about something in my whole life. Multiple world title to holder, and she just gave off an aura of like how like she had such a strong personality, and like she was going to impose herself on you, whatever happened, whatever you would do, she didn't care. Like she already had a plan, and that sort of like mental attitude and persona was so impressive to me. It was like a real fighter, someone out there who that's if they were in the ring and that was their home, so who are you, sort of thing. Yeah. And it was an amazing experience for me. I've never been so nervous in my whole entire life. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience, and I learned a lot from Michaela Lauren. Definitely someone who I've sparred hundreds of rounds with now, and someone who's inspired me greatly as a boxer. So she's someone I really look up to.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, Michaela's a kind of friend of yours, isn't it? She was there the night you won a world title, was she?
She wasn't there, but
right.
When she used to have the IBO super welterweight world title before that, and it was kind of like a passing on sort of thing. It was really cool.
Great. So going back to you starting to work with Noel, you had some kind of white collar bouts, and then you were starting to travel internationally for sparring and getting new experiences as well. Was there ever a conversation that you sat down with Noel and said, right, like, what do you want to achieve? What are we doing here? Like, what's the objective?
I think when we talked about it, it was just more, I think because we have a similar mindset, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it to the best of our ability. We're both like that. We're highly competitive people, and Noel is incredibly competitive, just like me. And I think because we work so hard, and we're not scared to work hard, and we're not scared to like put the time and effort in to achieve and dream big as well. Like we've both been like, always been like that. If we're going to go and do something, and if somebody says you can't do it, that's probably the worst thing you could ever say to me, and the worst thing you could ever say to him. Oh, you're never gonna, you can't do that. You come from a white collar background. You got no amateur experience. You'll never be able to go into a pro game. Oh yeah, watch me. And then like, you're a white collar fighter, had a few fights. Oh, you're gonna fight for a world title. You're gonna become world champion. Yeah, I am. Watch me do it. And it's like one of those things where like the goal setting is important for me, because it helps me push myself and allows me to see how far I can actually go. So yeah, it's that sort of like, oh, you think we can't do it? We're gonna do it.
Yeah, no, great mindset, and it probably leads really nicely into as well, Hannah, that you were Scotland's first ever world champion. You're going to be fighting for belts again, but you also have had knockbacks in your career. So yeah. Just interested to get some insight into your mindset. So, when you come up against like a loss or a knockback, like, what do you do to kind of rebuild? Like, what's your kind of mindset? And is it straight back into the gym and straight to work and identifying what the issues are and working on them, or do you have some rest? Like, what's your mindset like when you get a knockback, not just in boxing, but in life as a whole?
So for me, I think I'm really blessed to be quite a resilient person. I think resilience is something that is not really, it's starting to become more talked about now, but what makes a resilient person is quite interesting. For me, it's never a case of, oh, it didn't work, or I feel down, like I'm not going to try again. I've never had that feeling. Like in my mind, it's always like, okay, I can do it better and I can improve this. And I've always, whenever I've had a knockback, it has depended on the situation of how I've reacted. So like, if I'd gone in there, given my best performance I ever could have, and I was just beaten by a better person, then that's easier to take on board, because you then take what you did well in the fight, take what you didn't do so well, learn from it, and be like, the next time I get in the ring, I'm going to be better. I've always had that, you know. And my mum always said to me, like, when it came to like music auditions as well, you're allowed to mope about it for a day. Once you've had your day, that's it. End up. No more talking about it. No more being down about it. You've got to let these things go. And my dad always says, what's for you won't go by you. And as hard as that is to think of sometimes in the most difficult situations, he's always been right. If it's for you at that point in time and it's meant to be, you will get it. And I've always had that really strong belief. And if it didn't happen and you gave it your all, then it wasn't meant to be. And that's how I mentally deal with things. However, when there's like difficult situations, like my first loss when I went to Norway, I felt that I won that fight fair and square. It was I was robbed away from home as far as I was concerned, and a lot of people said that too. So, you know, it was one of those fights where I got a loss on my record, but I didn't lose the fight, and that was very frustrating to deal with. And that was a different sort of, I had to look at it a different way. So I was determined when I got back in the ring that I was going to showcase how great I could be, because I was pissed about the last one, you know. So, and then of course, when I lost my world title, that was the hardest one for me, because through a mistake of my own, I got dropped in the first round. I rushed, right? So I then had to deal with the fact that the mistake was mine, you know, the mistake. And some people thought I still won the fight after that anyway. And it was a controversial decision. I thought I got a knockdown, wasn't counted a knockdown, various things. But at the end of the day, it was my mistake at the beginning that caused the questions. And that's the hardest pill to swallow, when you know it was your fault and you didn't give the best of you. And I think that was why I was so down after that, because I'd worked so hard to get my world title and I didn't feel like I did myself justice. So mentally that was very difficult, and I'm very grateful to have had the support of Noel to get through like a very dark time for me, because I found that one to be the most difficult. So I think it really depends on the situation, how you approach it, but fundamentally it's always, I can do it better. So I'm gonna show you I can do it better.
Yeah, great mindset. And Hannah, like, you having your first pro fight, women's boxing at that time, to where women's boxing is now, like, how far do you think women's boxing's come? Are you satisfied with where it's at, or is there still a lot more to come?
So I had my first pro fight in a nightclub in Southend. I had to walk through a kitchen to get to the ring. So yeah, what a night, right? And then now I'm about to fight for 2 world titles, headlining at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You know, there's a bit of a change in my life, but yeah, women's boxing has definitely advanced amazingly. I think, ironically, as difficult as it was for many other people, the pandemic was very useful for women's boxing, because we suddenly had a captive audience, and Eddie decided, I'm going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to put some female fights on my cards, but I'm going to put top title fights on the cards. So nothing really short of a 10-rounder or something really super exciting, like or a real grudge match. And it meant that because people couldn't go anywhere, they watched the women's fights, and suddenly they realized, oh, actually, we like this. These girls bring it every single time. Like, mine and Savannah's fight was awarded Dramatic Fight of the Year by the WBC. And I think Ebony Bridges' fights, she was in some crackers. Terry Harper was in some crackers, and Natasha Jonas. Like, there were some brilliant fights all round. And I don't think none of the women's fights disappointed. So to see that on the TV, women getting airtime, from when I started way back through my kitchen walk in Southend, it's dramatically gone up. And I think now it's actually here to stay. I think it's here to stay as a regular fixture, and we're going to see a regular female fights, and the numbers of women boxing have massively risen in the UK finally. So we've got more people to compete against and all that sort of stuff. So slowly it's growing. We do need to address the financial side of things, like we're getting paid nowhere near what the guys are getting paid, which is why we could afford to have female world title fights on the matchroom cards, you know, on regular ones, because we don't get paid anywhere near what the guys get paid. So that needs to be addressed. I think we need to have longer rounds or more rounds for world titles in comparison to European Commonwealth. and that will help continue to grow the sport. But right now we're in a fantastic place in comparison to when I started out, and people were like, oh, it's a chicks fight, we'll go to the bar. So like it's massively changed.
Yeah, no, I agree, and certainly not now. And you're completely right with all those fights that were on the matchroom card. They were all really competitive, drama, exciting, some great fights. And I think that people just want to see more of them now. Those competitive fights at a high level. And Hannah, speaking like specifically about like Scottish boxing, women's Scottish boxing, like you must feel immensely proud at the fact that you're Scotland's first world champion, and you can show other women in Scotland that, you know, what can be achieved. When your career does come to a close, do you want to still, you know, support others coming through that and give back? Can you see yourself moving into the kind of coaching, trainer, management side of things one day?
I think the funny thing about boxing, and I think most boxers will agree with this, is once it gets its kind of claws into you, you never really truly let it go. It's something that's with you for your whole life. And I'm very blessed at the moment to be getting to do commentary work with Fight Zone. It's something that I never thought I'd do, and it's an area that I'm loving life. Like I'm literally loving it. It's so interesting. I'm learning loads from Don McGuinness and Glenn McCrory when I'm doing that there, and Anthony Crawler as well, just learning loads from them. And for me, it's definitely something I want to be involved in even once I've retired. But it's really important to me, having made history for Scotland, that I'm available for people to like talk to or work with or anything for who are coming through. Like we have fresh new talent. I want to be an inspiration to the next generation, and I want them to see that it doesn't matter where you come from, how you start out. If you truly work hard and you want to achieve this and you want to go somewhere in the sport, you can. And you need a good team around you, but it's possible. And I think that's so important, especially in Scotland, because we haven't got that many female fighters in Scotland, but the numbers are slowly rising, and which is great, finally. But yeah, I do want to be involved. Maybe I'll maybe get my own gym. I quite like that, you know. I quite like to have my own gym. Obviously, Noel will obviously be a great coach. I'd have him there as well, and we could set up a good gym, I think.
Is that you just wanting to boss Noel about once you're finished the career, just for roles reversed? Tell him what to do.
Me. You know, we're getting that point in camp now where I'm like, you're going to tell me to do one more thing, huh? I'm just like, I'm ready to fight now. Let's go.
Yeah. But I don't know. In terms of Fight Zone, like that was the last time I seen you. Like I thought that show was excellent. Like I thought the venue, like being outside, it was great. There was some great fights throughout the card. Like the punditry was great as well. Like the whole kind of Fight Zone package, I just think was just so refreshing. And I know that they've got other cards lined up for Turnberry and up in Aberdeen as well. Two cracking cards. But I think, like from my perspective, and you know, I may be wrong in this, but I think that with Fight Zone, it might free up kind of additional budget where we can see more like competitive fights, maybe at that kind of domestic level, or some potential stars coming through for Scotland on these cards as well, that we did see on that Hamilton card.
I definitely agree. I think the wonderful thing about Fight Zone with Dennis as well, Dennis Hobson, is that it's a platform about the fighters and for the fighters. It's not about the promoter. It's not about the TV. It's actually about the fighters. And funny enough, we're the ones out there making it exciting for people. You know, we're the ones entertaining people. We are the entertainment. So I think it's fantastic to actually give a little bit back, because the fighters have a platform to introduce themselves to the world at an early part of their career, early stage. So therefore, it's easier to sell tickets. It's easier to get more people involved in watching your fights. People get to know who you are, learn a little bit about your character. And as an entertainment side of it, as part of the entertainment industry, you need to sell yourself. So Fight Zone is giving a great platform there. It's also getting the fighters that are on its shows to come and do a bit of talk on commentary, or come and speak to people or introduce things. And we're really getting to know people's characters, which is quite nice, actually. So I'm very proud to be part of it, to be honest. And I think it's been a very refreshing, exciting idea that's come out of the pandemic as well. And there's more 50-50 fights. Fighters aren't afraid to take the 50-50 fights because they've got the support of Dennis. And Dennis is like, take the fight, put on a good show. Okay, you don't get the nod, but it's a great fight. we'll get you straight back out there, and we're not going to abandon you and leave you to go back to the bottom again and start. You know, you're there, you have the support of your promoter, and that's very refreshing too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I remember I think it was the first fight of the night, and Billy Stewart was fighting Mexican. It was an absolute war, and I was sitting like ringside, good view, someone like yourself doing the punditry, and you're just like, wow, that's like the first fight of the night, and the atmosphere was electric. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more nights up in Scotland like that, Turnberry. And
well, that's the great thing, is that like Fight Zone have said, okay, Billy Stewart, Dean, they both put on amazing fights. It was very exciting, and Dean was like, oh, I'd love to do a home show back in Aberdeen, and Fight Zone are like, right, we'll come to Aberdeen, you know. And that's so great, because Scotland, everyone thinks Glasgow or Edinburgh. That's all I think about, Glasgow or Edinburgh, you know. Whereas actually, it's good to go and highlight these different places. Like, that's the thing about Fight Zone. It's travelled around. Like, it's been in Coventry, in Leicester, in London, up in Scotland, in Glasgow. It's going to be in Aberdeen, and it's just, it's quite nice to see that. And it also highlights British boxing, because there are hundreds of us here, thousands of us in the UK that box, but only the ones on the Fight Zone card are going to be getting like a chance to showcase themselves earlier in their career before they get a Matchroom or a Frank Warren kind of contract or something like that, because normally you only get on TV when you're with them. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, something I wanted to pick your brains on, and it's been something that has been kind of blew up Twitter, it blew up boxing Twitter. Shannon Courtney. So I just wanted to get your like thoughts on that. Do you think, because maybe it is something that boxing need to look at, or you think it could be potentially just a poor excuse, like from your perspective and being a woman as well? Do you think that could affect like a weight cut, or do you think that's something that needs reviewed? Like, just wanted to get like your thoughts on that.
So I've had 15 professional fights, and my period has, like, you know, it's not something that's affected my weight. I've managed it. My whole team know about it. We know when it happens. We move it. Like, there are ways of dealing with these things, and as plenty of other female fighters out there will tell you, like, we all manage it. So, you know, we work with it. The WBC allow like a 2-pound water weight extra allowance. I, for one, on my period, I can put anything up to 4 to 6 pounds of water weight on, right? But like, I would have known that I was that much heavier prior to the actual weigh-in day. I would not, if I just woken up and my period had happened, I would have known it was going to happen, because I would have been heavier before. But that's how I know myself, and I'm not going to say I know anything about Shannon Courtney's period, so it's completely like, that's personal. But I just don't think it's a good enough excuse to lose your world title on the scales. I think, you know, if you're only 2.5 pounds over, you should be trying to run it off as much as you can, or get it off, you know, because I just think as part of your job, 50% of your job is to make weight. And I just think a lot of female fighters out there will be like, well, you know, we all managed to do it. So I don't really feel it was a very good excuse.
Yeah, I just personally, I there was a few things that just were a bit strange for me, Hannah. Like, when Shannon came off the scales, it wasn't as if there was going to be some sort of attempt to try and make the weight. You know, like, can I go down fighting in a way? She came straight off the stage and she started drinking Lucozade, and you're like,
no. So the thing is, I think this is something that every team does things differently, but I'm totally anal about the weight, right? And so is Noel. Noel has me on, like, and I know in those Matchroom bubbles, they have scales available for you to check on every day. So scales are there. And then the fight scales are out before the TV cameras go on. So you have an opportunity to check that as well. So did they not check? And why were they not trying to lose the weight? Because, I mean, 2.5 pounds it's not as much as, like, say, maybe 5 pounds or something like that. And I'd be trying to get it off as quickly as possible. And then I've got an hour after I've weighed in if I'm still a bit over. I just felt like they were surprised that she was overweight. it came across like it was a bit of a surprise. So I don't know how it can be a surprise if you've checked.
Yeah, like it just the whole thing was just strange, and like I think it was £2.5, she'd 2 hours. Like surely you would just go and you would try and make an attempt, and you know you might not get there, but at least you're like, you know what, I gave them all, and I'm not going to lose my world title, or I've just missed out my world title, but it came as a shock, and I tried to do it from the can. But just to accept it, I just found it very strange. I just wanted to,
I think
like,
a lot of
get
people
your
thought
thoughts on
exactly
it.
the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people were really surprised. Michaela Mayer was said, well, you know, how does she have time to do her makeup and her hair if she's not on weight? She should be on the treadmill sweating as much as possible. But you know, it's each to their own. I can't criticize somebody until I know the full story. But I do think a lot of female fighters were like, well, we all deal with the same things. And because it's not like some people get on the scales and find out they're pregnant, you know, like, because we have to do pregnancy tests like the week of that. So that's, I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish. But you know, your period is something that, you try and control as best you can. Also, question, what do you think? So apparently there's a rematch clause for her to fight for the title again. But in my opinion, if you've lost the title on the scales due to not making weight, should you get a chance to fight again? Should that rematch clause actually be able to be activated because you didn't fulfill the beginning of the requirements?
Like you need, there's like things you need to hit to actually qualify for that right to defend your title. So if you can't even hit those, then why should you get the rematch? In my opinion, no. I just find the whole thing strange, and the performance as well. I can understand that she's taken a lot of abuse online, and a lot of people having opinions and saying X, Y, and Z. Like, and it's probably been a horrible week, but I thought her performance was shocking as well in there. But she's fighting a good fighter, and don't get me wrong, fighting someone that really was looking as if that one chance in life, you know, this is my chance to win a world title, and someone had been from a kind of rough upbringing. So yeah, credits to her, but it's just the whole thing is just strange. But I agree with you.
I think it was a genuine surprise. There was a genuine surprise that she was overweight, and that's what I found really odd, because I'm totally OCD about it. I have to check my weight. I'm on the scales. I make sure, you know, like, it's just, for me, making weight as a fighter is 50% of your job. If you were to go into an office and not work for 50% of your day, or not do something, you'd be fired. So like, for me, it's just a basic part of what you have to do, and you have to do it. And if you've had 10 weeks to make weight, so, you know, like, or however long your training camp's been. So I don't know. I'd be very surprised as to why that would have happened. And, you know, it's an excuse that she used, but I don't think the rematch should happen. I think there's too many calls for rematches for things as well.
And just another point as well to finish, Hannah, like, you're a musician, you teach and you box. Then, you know, if you look at Scotland as an example, there's lots of great gyms, lots of great fighters, but the majority are part-time and that they're working as well. So Adam Booth's gym is respected as one of the best in the country, right? It's a full-time gym. So how can you be a full-time fighter and then there's like an element of surprise on the scale? It just doesn't make sense. Like, it's just, I don't know what's going on.
I genuinely look surprised, and that's why I was like, okay. And I was so the bad part is, when she didn't make weight, that's exactly why I was expecting her to say as an excuse. I knew that was what was going to come, because there's no other value, excuse that you can use that's acceptable that you might just get away with. But as far as I'm concerned, you match because you didn't fulfill the parts of the contract at the beginning anyway. And I don't think James should have to rematch her.
No, I agree. But no, I appreciate your thoughts on that. I'm not trying to start a war of words. I just think when there's certain things that come up in boxing that's maybe something that hasn't come up before, it's worth, you know, discussing it and saying, is it something boxing should look at or not look at, you know? So that's why I wanted to get your thoughts. So, but so focusing on the 5th of November, soon to be two-time world champion. So,
Come on.
so
Yeah.
I know. So Maria Lindberg, WBA, IBO, super welterweight, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, exclusively live on Fight Zone.
Yes, that's the one. Yep.
So how are things going? How are preparations going? How much are you looking forward to it?
I'm so excited. It was 3 weeks, 3 weeks yesterday. So yeah, proper buzzing now. Like the camp's gone really, really well. Weight's on point. I feel like in the best shape of my life actually. Because obviously I was meant to fight on that show in Hamilton in Scotland, but that got delayed because this opportunity came up, and Dennis was like, "Oh, we'd love Hannah to headline one of our shows for a world title," and the WBA 154 world title was up. And because my last fight had been at welterweight, so I was going to stay down at welterweight, but the opportunity came up and I was like, I'm having that, absolutely. And if someone wants, like Dennis was like, right, we'd like you to headline the show, fight for the world title, and you become my first female world champion and Fight Zone's first world champion. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm doing it, absolutely, 100%.
Great. Maria, have you ever sparred Maria, or how much? Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
So how well do you know her? What's that?
I sparred a lot of people.
Yeah. Like I expected you to say yes. Like don't get me wrong, I expected you to say yes there. So like, how well do you know Maria? Like how often have you sparred her?
So I've a while ago. We sparred quite a long time ago now. So quite early on when I was starting out, when she was in I think Hamburg at the time. So that was a long time ago now. So but I'm expecting the best version of Maria Lindberg to turn up. She's very experienced as a fighter. She's been in with the top level opposition, like myself, been in with the top of the top. And I think that, it's going to be an exciting fight for people to watch because we both bring it in the ring and I think everyone's going to enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's even though like, you're from Scotland, but you've lived in London quite a while now. So it's a bit of a like second homecoming fight, world title fight.
Absolutely. That's how I'm looking at it. Like for me, everything's just aligning right. Bonfire night is my favorite night of the year. I just love it. And London is my second home. And having won my first one at home in Scotland in front of my family and friends there, to win these two world titles at home here in my second home in London, headlining, nothing really gets better than that, to be honest.
Yeah, great. And Hannah, so like, you've had quite a few big fights in your career. Like, do you analyse the opponent and you come up with a plan with Noel, or does Noel, do that, or like how what's your approach to the fight?
So I always watch my opponents when I get video footage. It's good to watch the people and see what they've done over their career, see how they box and things like that. But I leave the game plan up to Noel. Noel has multiple game plans. Like he likes to have lots of plans. He's one of those very organized human beings, and I execute the game plan. That's my job, on the night. And their job is to, from outside in the corner, to see what's going on. And my job is to execute what I'm told to do. And that's why I believe I become world champion on the 5th, because we have a great game plan, and I'm excited to showcase it to everybody on the night. But yeah, he's always super organized, and we work on things in the gym, practice things which I like, things which he wants me to try, but then it didn't really work for me. We build it up together, but he's the one that's in control of that. And that's what he does.
So what's the prediction for the fight then?
Oh, I'm coming home with 2 world titles back to Scotland. Absolutely.
That's what I expected you to say. Nothing less. Nothing less. But listen, Hannah, I really appreciate your time. I know how much you love your boxing like me, and there's boxing on tonight, so I don't want to keep you back from that any longer. I just want to wish you all the best on Bonfire Night in your second home. I've got absolutely no doubts. You're doing Scotland proud again. And thanks again for your time.
Thank you for having me, Craig. It's been great to catch up, and always nice to hear someone from home.
All right. Okay, Hannah, take care. Thanks again.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.